Hey there, welcome to CNT Collectibles. I am C. Hope you are doing well. All right, so we're sitting about a month away, a little over a month away from catchers and pitchers reporting for spring training here. So if you're in fantasy baseball, if you're looking for some guys to maybe speculate on heading into the season, it's best to maybe look at some players that are a little bit more under the radar. So when you're talking about like Mike Trout, Mookie Betts, some of the bigger Juan Soto, some of the bigger names, we know where they stand, we know where they're at, and there's not a lot of value to be had on there. Really, there's more downside. You expect them to be the best. So how do you be better than the best? You really can't. So you're kind of hitting them at the peak, but maybe we can pick off some players that have some potential upside. So we'll try and identify those. And today we're going to look at Jazz Chisholm, second baseman for the Miami Marlins, who is really, as I was looking over the scans, kind of some of the early rankings, preliminary rankings, looks like he might be, projections have him as one of the top, top couple really of second baseman in the league here. That's kind of his upside. And so I thought we'd just break him down a little bit and see what we see, take a little bit closer look. So again, if you're looking for a card or something like that, or if you just want to prepare for your fantasy season, maybe this helps you out a little bit here. So just finished his age 24 season with a 139 weighted runs created and 2.5 wins above replacement in just 60 games. And so really it was on a pretty incredible all-star plus level pace here, 14 home runs. The average, not a ton to write home about, 250 average, but again, he was swinging for the fences and put a number of balls out of the park here. So, I mean, he was really on a 35 home run pace roughly before he was injured. So as a prospect, 40 grade hit tool, but some pretty decent power. Raw power 60, game power 55, and very speedy in the field. So an above average fielder as well. So not that really matters for fantasy or card purposes, but that will keep you in the lineup for the most part here. And so over the past 3 seasons, he's been playing since he's 22. And so that's what you like to see, from a card perspective. Guys come up early and perform. So he's reduced his strikeout rate over the past 30 years, down from 30% of the time down to 27% of the time. So it's a small but steady decline. Still elevated. I think if you want longevity, you need to be under that 20% area, but it is what it is here. Isolated power, again, that 35 home run pace last year, or roughly whatever that is. The isolated power was pretty elevated, 282. So if you subtract out the singles and all that kind of stuff, and just take the extra base hits and the slugging, then you wind up with an isolated power. And so that's up there with the big boys. 300 BABIP, so a speedy guy can handle that. That's probably a fair number. And again, the 250 average. So we are looking for a little bit of regression this year. That isolated power, probably a little too much. Again, that pace was strong for him here, and so they may look for a little bit of a pullback here. But because of his injury, he's a little bit out of sight, out of mind, and so we'll see if he's an interesting pickup in any of the realms that we're looking at here. So barrel percentage has been able to increase that. And again, if you're barreling up the ball, it's a sweet combination of exit velocity and launch angle that leads to basically a 1500 OPS guy, MVP level. You think Aaron Judge or something like that, even a little bit better. So that launch angle of 15 degrees, right at that lower end of that 15 to 25 degrees that you're looking for consistent home runs, maximum exit velocity 109. So he's got a little bit of thump to his bat. And in the second base position, typically that's not the strongest offensive position. So you've got a few guys that do pretty well, and the reason they stand out is because there's not a lot of guys that do that there. And so when looking at Jazz Chisholm, he could find himself, among the elites at the position. So, at a weaker position, that really does kind of help him out. He's increased his hard hit over the past 3 years, 29%, roughly 30% when he came into the league, up around 45% now, which is really nice. A couple of things to be concerned about. Again, the home run fly ball rate, 23%. The power hitters are going to be upwards of about 35%, maybe 40% in a crazy elite year. If you get to 25%, that's where solid power hitters can kind of reside. Guys that aren't that 40 to 50 home run, once they get up that area, that's kind of their peak. And so he was at that 23% range, which is, again, it's elevated. So we could see that come back a little bit. He was closer to that 11% in the first year, 18% his second year, and so there could be a little bit of regression again as he put more balls in the air, and that's going to help the ratio overall. So this will be a year where he's been a little all over the map the first couple of years. So this will be a year where we kind of figure out what we have in him. So last year, smaller sample size. He was pulling the ball more, fewer opposite field hits, again, hitting the ball hard. But there's a few reasons for that. And honestly, the shift this year going away, he may benefit from that a little bit here. He's improved his plate discipline a little bit from the first season. It looked really nice. Anything under 30%, swinging outside the zone is a pretty fair number. You're going to have some success with that. And so a little bit above that last year, and then or 2 years ago, and then this previous season, right around 30%, which is decent. He's making less contact in the zone. So again, there's a couple reasons for this here. A little bit more swinging strikes. So he's swinging at pitches in the zone, and he's missing more, and there is a reason for that. Not this slide, but maybe the next slide. I'll show you what I'm seeing here. So hit type, a lot of pulls. So we saw that he's pulling the ball more here, and so a lot of fly balls to the opposite field, and so he's got that weaker contact when he does swing in the zone. It's a little bit, or outside the zone, it is a bit weaker contact, which isn't going to help the average a ton. In the zone, again, making less contact, but when he's gets something he can turn on, he does drive it pretty well. So as he progresses as a hitter, maybe he can fix these things just a little bit here. Looking at his splits as a lefty against lefties, the lefty-lefty matchup's not in his favor here. He handles righties just fine. It's kind of interesting. The home and away does better at home. None of this is surprising. But if you look at the early part of the season, he does kind of get off to a fast start. So this is a player that if you're buying him in the preseason and he gets off to a hot start, maybe that's when you exit, because he does tend to decline through the rest of the season. Gets a little bump in August, but for the most part, he's a quick starter, and then he falls off just a little bit. So again, smaller sample size. That can be changed in July and August, as again, the injuries kind of took some of that away from him. But so if you have him in fantasy, if you're buying his cards, then maybe you dump him as quickly as you pick him up here. But he's a left-handed batter. Sees plenty of balls, kind of in the zone, just a little bit away. And again, there's a reason for that. We'll get into that on the next slide here. But they're able to nibble at the zone for him, and they're not afraid to throw him a ton of strikes. He handles them, again, if they're inside, he handles them pretty well. But if they're just a little bit away, he will try and swing. And if you try and pull balls that are away, as a lefty, you're going to come over the top of it a little bit, and you get that weaker contact, and he's not able to push that ball solidly to left field, go opposite field, and take advantage of some of those balls that are outside and away. So he'll have to, if he wants to become a complete player, if he wants to be this long-term investment, he's got to figure that out, how to handle balls away from the zone. And the reason that he's getting some of those balls in the zone, he's missing and he's not hitting with the best of contact. Again, the fly ball rate's coming down a little bit, so he's hitting more grounders. The fastball rates come down. And what he's seeing is more changeups. And so if you're a right-handed pitcher, you're pronating your arm, so you're putting away, so the ball's going to go down and away from a left-handed hitter. It's going to go down and into a righty, down and away from a lefty. It's going to look like a fastball, and if you're not recognizing those changeups which they're throwing them, significantly more of, and they're changing the fastballs off for those changeups, then you do kind of come over the top of them, and you get that weaker contact. So he's going to have to recognize some of these pitches a little bit better and start to throw them into the opposite field here. You try and pull something that's diving away from you. You softball guys know that's going up the middle, or it's going to be on the ground, and it's going to be something that's pretty fieldable overall. So I think that's the biggest thing. Pitchers have kind of caught on that he's trying to pull the ball, and when he does, he benefits from that, but he sacrifices average. So he gets the power, sacrifices average. But if they keep mixing up speeds on him and he's not able to handle it, then they've got something on him. So longer term came up a little bit. He came up at a fair time, but he didn't produce a whole lot here. So that trajectory, he could start to track it pretty well. But historically against Hall of Famers at the second base position, Joe Morgan really messes this one up here. He was amazing. But if he wants to get to that 60 wins by around 35 or whatever it is, then he's going to have to turn it into gear. He's got the opportunity, he's got the job, but being hurt last year didn't help. This year, again, he's going to have to become a little bit more of a complete hitter. You can see on the Baseball Savant that we've got a lot of action. This just shows the hits. A lot of action to right field. A lot of pull action here. So again, we need to see that spread out a little bit. He's got to recognize some of those off speed pitches here. Sprint speed, excellent defense. So that's going to keep him on the field for the most part here. So again, I don't have a lot of market data for his cards. There's not a lot out there. Usually I'd like to go over a couple of charts and just say, here's what we're seeing on them. But there's literally 2 or 3 data points at best on a lot of these. So what I saw was his Bowman First refractor was sitting at around $350 in that BGS 9510. And I think for that number, just because he is a little bit more speculative, and you can see last year, or his last at bats, he was really starting to tick up here. So I hope he can carry it into this year. So I do expect him to have a good season, but that longer term, I'm looking at like Francisco Lindor and Xander Bogaerts, more established players on a little bit better track, and you can get their Raws or a 9 or something like that for roughly the same price in that Bowman First. His other cards, if you're looking at refractors, autographs, they're sitting around $100. So it depends on what your budget is, and maybe he's worth a speculation because again, it gets off to that hot start. People, the demand overall is going to climb up here. So long term, not that interested yet. Short term, I think he's really interesting, and just be ready to kind of pull the trigger on that if he does come out with a strong month or two. So projections have him again leading second baseman in home runs with 28. I think he can get over 30, which would be a big deal. This would be like a Brandon Lau, like a 24, 25-year-old Brandon Lau, who was kind of a big deal. He had a really nice season. He's been hurt the past couple of years, but he started off, and I think there's a lot of interest around him. So 250 hitter with 30 plus home runs on those projections. That looks pretty darn interesting. So weighted runs created, above average player, nothing elite or anything like that. That's reserved for Altuve. So the rest of the second baseman, we don't have a lot of elite second baseman or anything like that. So he's just fine at the position. But again, anybody that's going to start putting up 30 plus home runs, I think is going to draw a lot of attention. So I'm interested. I'm not going crazy, but maybe you want to. So that's what I got for you. I appreciate you watching, like, subscribe, do all that kind of good stuff, and we will talk to you later. Bye.